Another question that I would ask someone is, what expenses do you cover and what do I pay for?
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah.
Because that is the ultimate boogeyman, because all of a sudden... Welcome to Real Estate for Real People. My name is Brad, and this is my wife.
Good morning or afternoon, wherever you are.
And what is your name?
Oh, my name's Marianne Whitaker.
Thank you. Excellent. And we work for Realty One Group Pacifica. And one of the things that we're talking about today is we're going over questions, kind of a part two to last week's podcast, is questions you should be asking your brokerage if you're a new agent, and why you should be asking those questions. So we're just going to jump right in, and feel free to comment and ask us any questions if you want a little more information. There's also a link to this document, like 31 or 32 different questions. Feel free to print that off and take it with you if you're going to interview at a brokerage, because these are the questions that you need to know. One of the things that I see the most as I'm interviewing people who are recruiting or recruits is that they don't even know what questions to ask. Mm-hmm. And that gets more people into trouble than not, because they don't ask the right questions, and then they jump in with both feet and they realize, oh, you do what? And I can't do what? And I have to do what? And so a lot of people come in very surprised, and that gets a little disappointing after you've made this big leap into real estate, and all of a sudden you find out that the place you've leapt is more like the fire, not the frying pan. So anyways, we'll go through some of these questions, and we hope to help you if you're on your search for a real estate firm to join. So first question right out of the gate will be, what kind of training do you provide beyond the new agent program, and what does it cost? Why would that question be important?
Well, when you're first starting out, you don't know what you don't know, right?
True.
And so by the time you get into real estate, you've done a number of hours of training, taken a test for the Department of Licensing, and...
When you say a number of hours of training, you mean online courses?
Well, online or in person.
Yeah. Okay.
In our state.
Depending on where you are.
Depending on where you are.
Yeah.
So in Washington, it's 90 hours for your first licensing requirement. It varies from state to state. And that's really important for just kind of getting steeped into the real estate vocabulary and minutia.
Learning that new language?
Yes, learning a new language. But you really learn real estate by doing real estate. So it's really important to know what a brokerage is going to do to support you in that, not just the online trainings or the classes in the office, which are also very important, but what are they doing to help you get out and learn the business? Do they have a program by which somebody walks through transactions with you and teaches you as you go? Most of us learn this business by doing this business. And so just sitting behind a desk is not going to really get you into understanding the processes and the paperwork and all those things.
Nobody can wait for real estate to come to them when they're new.
True.
After you're, 3, 4, 5 years in and you've got a past client database that's pretty substantial, then you can kind of throttle back on going outbound and just work on the people who are your past clients. But you got to watch out, because you got to hustle for 2 to 3 years really hard when you get into real estate. Because if you don't, you're going to trickle in, and your chances of blowing out, I think, are much better than if you were to really, hard charge it. Mm-hmm. Just kind of put your head down and get after it, because it's one of those things where you have to build up momentum. Mm-hmm. And you have to have those experiences, right? We talk about it being like, when you're learning how to play football, you got to read the playbook and you got to have reps on the field over and over and over in that same play. so that you can get it ingrained in your brain. Real estate is the exact same way. You've got to do a lot of showings, and you've got to write a lot of contracts, and you've got to do a lot of, listing appointments and that kind of stuff, and open houses. So if you don't have somebody training you on how to do all that, could very well be in for a world of hurt. There's, I think, the myth out there is that the big companies have all the training. There's a...
Well, they're certainly better known.
Right. Yeah.
Or infamous.
Yeah.
Let's say that.
Right. So, you don't be fooled if you're asking this question. Don't be fooled by somebody who says, "Oh yeah, we got lots of training." You need to go next level sets of questions, right? So there are some firms out there that say, "Oh yeah, great. Hey, we've got this whole week-long program of training." And then they get you signed up and they go, "Okay, it's $800 to go through that."
Right. So be sure you count the cost. Ask about the cost. Make sure that that's something that's really going to be of value to you. There are some other pieces of training that you would want to ask about as well. Do they have consistent training on forms? In Washington State, we have the Northwest MLS, and we have about 100 forms. So, and they cover every situation in any transaction.
There's a form for that.
There's a form for that. And so make sure, and they're always changing, right? They're adapting. So you'll want to ask questions about that. How often do people get informed on the changes that happen with the MLS? What are some other things as far as training that people should ask about? We talked about the cost.
Well, yeah, but there's also, probably the thing that everybody needs training on the most is generating leads.
Yeah,
right?
Because that really is our business in real estate. It's not selling houses; it's generating leads.
Yeah, the homes sell themselves. Your job as a real estate agent is to go out and find people to show the homes to. So whether you are working in a sphere, your own sphere of influence, friends, family, previous coworkers, that kind of stuff, or you've got you have a yoga class that you attend, or you've got a bunch of guys that you like to go hunting or fishing with, or whatever. Those are the groups that you need to learn how to work within, as well as, some people like to use the pay at close leads. That's another way to generate business that doesn't cost you out of pocket money right up front. So lead generation is everything. And if you are not comfortable talking to people, some people like to make cold calls. I'm not a cold call guy. Some people like to knock doors. I'm a door knocker, right? My past life experiences, I did a lot of door knocking.
Yes, you did.
And so, that isn't a fear point for me, but it is for others, right? Whereas you couldn't pay me to pick up a phone and make cold calls. So everybody's got their own thing that they're passionate about. And it can be as easy as, setting a goal to give out 500 of your business cards every month and, spend 50 or 60 bucks on business cards, because that'll be the least expensive lead gen you will ever do, right? You hear about Zillow and Realtor.com. And the thing that you have to remember about those is you will pay them thousands of dollars a year for as few as 20 leads. And those 20 leads aren't guaranteed leads. You might close one in those 20. And so if you pay $1,800, $2,000, $2,500 a year for those 20 leads, and you can turn one, that means you closed one deal, you paid your bill, but did you really make a lot of money? So yeah, there's a cost associated with pretty much everything, unless you're working with your family and friends, and then it's much less expensive.
That may be a different kind of cost.
Yeah, true. Very true. Very true. Okay, so any other things that we need to bring up on training and that kind of stuff?
I don't think so. I think part of training is also how does the office, stay current and up to date with the technology and things like that. So that also kind of rolls into training, but we talked about that last week. So
yeah, Yeah, and the other thing you want to ask is when you're, because some offices provide leads for you. So the next question you have to ask is, what do those leads cost me? There are some offices out there where if they're providing the lead, they want 50% of your commission check no matter what your actual split is. So you have to be careful that you are not losing more money than you think is going to come out of your wallet just because they say, oh, we offer leads. Well, that's great, but what do those leads cost me? Right? And there's always a cost of doing business because those leads often cost the office money. So anyways, so just be aware that that is an issue for sure. So how about this one? Do you provide full or limited services? What is that? What would that mean, or would that look like to a new person coming into real estate?
Full or limited services.
Right. Are you a full service brokerage, or are you a discount brokerage?
Okay.
What are the differences?
So a discount brokerage is going to do the minimum of anything, honestly. They're not going to probably provide much marketing assistance or social media assistance.
They may or may not have an office.
May or may not have an office. Physical location, yes.
You may or may not get calls from your managing broker if you have questions or you need help.
Yes, those are the things that would probably be included or should be included in a full service brokerage. Other kinds of full service items, do they have transaction coordinator assistance options? Do they have marketing options? What are some of the other things that for a full service brokerage?
Well, I think about our coaching and our mentoring groups, and I think about the social media asset production and all of those things that are someone's expertise, but not necessarily yours as a real estate agent. Right. So, does your office have someone who does that for you? Or are you just on your own? Do they have all the templates already done, or are you just on your own to make those? Because, you could spend all week just creating social media assets, right? And we're not professional social media people. We're professional realtors. We just use social media to get the word out so that people know that we're not secret agents.
Right. I think training falls under that too.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that, and I think full service brokerages they focus on that as well.
Would you say a full service brokerage really has to have a space? A physical building?
In my opinion, yes.
Right.
Because that's one of the ways. Well, and again, it goes back to what kind of brokerage are you looking for? Are you looking for just do it yourself, be in your home office, not connect with anyone, not have a community to give back to your your local community? What is it that you're looking for? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Something simple as your copier and your scanner, right? Do you have an office that has one of those, or do you not have an office? So now you have to do all your own printing and scanning and stuff at home. Mm-hmm. And what kind of investment do you have to have for that? Because if you get cheap stuff, you're just going to be replacing it regularly. Mm-hmm. So, and is the quality as good? There's all kinds of things that you need to ask yourself. Tech support.
Is there any tech support in the office?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Right. And does it cost?
Does it cost?
Yeah. True story. So, this is one of those topics that you could go on forever on, because support is also intrinsic where, are there agents in the office who will help you if you have a quick question? And if you have no office to go to, the answer to that is no, there's not. So as a new agent, I would personally never suggest to anyone that they go to a discount broker just because it's cheap. You're going to get what you pay for. A seasoned agent who's got their business all wrapped up and they're just looking to cut all their fees, that's fine. But as a new agent, I wouldn't ever suggest to anyone to go and get after it without having full service around.
Either.
Yeah. Can I build my brand here, or am I only allowed to brand for the office? What does that even mean, build my brand?
So in our office, I'll use that as an example, we have a number of husband-wife teams, and they have created a brand for their team or their grouping that has the same colors as Realty One Group, but it's representative of them. For example, in our office, Brad and myself and our son Colin we are Whitaker Home Team, and so we actually have a logo that matches that, and we are able to brand that along with Realty One Group Pacifica. So both of those pieces are present in marketing, any of our marketing assets. Not all offices allow for that kind of thing.
Some actually will never allow it because they want their name and their brand out there 24/7. They don't want anybody confusing, Whitaker Home Team with Realty One Group Pacifica, so to speak. So they don't even let you brand your own. You just have to use their signs, their phone number, makes their office phone ring. So yeah, if you are someone who is, creative and really wants to kind of build this thing into a real business, you can't work at an office that will not allow you to expand your brand. And if they're not willing to let you brand yourself, then you definitely don't want to stick around there.
We do have, it's not just couples and that create brands either.
Oh, no.
Individual agents.
Solo agents, teams, couples.
They do that too. So it's just important to know what the philosophy or the policies and procedures are for that kind of thing in the offices that you're interviewing with.
Yeah, true story. You'll find a lot of creativity with what am I trying to say there? I don't know. Lost that one.
Did you lose that one?
Just lost
it. It's okay, babe.
Yeah. Okay. Another question that I would ask someone is, what expenses do you cover and what do I pay for?
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah.
Because that is the ultimate boogeyman, because all of a sudden you don't know you have this huge bill coming up and they just drop it on your desk, or your association drops it on your desk. And if you haven't been made aware, so you have firm expenses, and then you have industry expenses.
That's a good way to say that, yeah.
Right? On top of your personal expenses. So you really do have to run this thing like a business. So what kind of firm expenses would there be for a new agent?
So in some offices, that may include a marketing fee, a transaction fee,
Desk
fee.
And
Would you put the split in there?
Well, it is a cost of doing business. In some offices, if you're brand new, they'll hit you with a 50-50 split.
Meaning that the office keeps 50% of your commission.
Right. So let's say you make a $10,000 commission, they're going to take $5,000 and leave you with $5,000, and then there's expenses that still come out of that at the firm level. Yeah.
So those are probably the biggest fees at the firm level.
How about copies? Something as simple as that.
Oh, yeah. Ask about all the fees.
Because you only get so many copies a month on most firms' machines, and color copies cost, so you got to be aware of everything, because you can't just walk in and say, I'm going to print 50 color flyers for my open house this weekend, because that may end up costing you $10 or $15. And if you
Which is fine if that's what you're counting on.
Right.
If you've taken that expense into account. But you just need to know.
Yeah, that's so. Let's say you do a couple open houses every week, and it's $10 to $15 every time you do that. At the end of a month, when they send you your bill, all of a sudden you've got $120 worth of copy bills, and you're wondering, what did I do that for? I threw most of those away. I overprinted, right? So anyway, so just be aware of how that all works. for sure.
There are other costs, the industry costs.
Yeah, the industry costs. And they are going to vary per state, obviously.
Yes.
But we'll speak to Washington. So you have your association dues, you have your MLS dues, you have sometimes dues for your
Electronic key.
electronic key to get into the lock boxes. So there's, I mean, it may only be $15 a month for the electronic key, but it's $15 every month. And some MLSs are, 250, 260 a quarter or per half year. So, you can expect $500 to $600 a year for your MLS, for each MLS you're in. Some offices like ours are in the fringe of 2 MLSs, so we have to pay fees to both because we buy and sell in both. Not every office is going to have that issue. If you're deep in the middle of an MLS, obviously there's no need for
Well, and I
a
don't know
second
that
set of-
every office, even on the fringe, takes advantage of that.
No, absolutely not.
So
Yeah, because not only so you may want to join this neighboring MLS, but if you do that, there's a good chance that it means your whole office is going to have to join, or at least your managing broker in the office have to join. So there's expenses for the office.
other expenses that you may not think about or want to ask about, maybe the office that you are interviewing with buys lock boxes for their agents, or maybe you're responsible for that yourself. So,
Because lock boxes are like $110 a piece.
Yeah.
So because of all the tech inside them, right?
so you just have to plan for that and know that.
Right.
So
So-
asking those questions.
Yeah, and you want to ask your signage, right? Who pays for your signage? Because that also can get expensive in a hurry.
But if they're your signs with your name on them and your phone number,
Then it's easier to swallow that
It is
investment
easier
because
to
it's
swallow
not
that
like it's a one
investment.
and done, right? So you don't
No, you
don't
use
pay
them over and
$100
over.
and get
Yeah.
a sign and then disappear. But
but it's
yeah.
still an expense
It
you have
is.
to ask about.
Yeah, and then let's talk about gas, right? Because most new
Gas.
agents don't have a lot of listings that they do, so they're out running buyers. Yeah, car gas. Not
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, just checking. So, I mean, you could easily put on several hundred miles a week into your car. And if you're in a rural enough area, so there are some agents who get into towns and they can just work a section of town. So it's almost like their business is walkable because they're in such a compact area of a big city. Where in our world, we traverse the whole county and sometimes multiple
Multiple
counties,
counties.
right? So, I mean, we could easily be 200 miles a day just based on where we need to travel. And I mean, when the season kicked in this year, we had people showing 5, 6, 8, 10 homes a weekend. And, the homes may be centrally located to one another, but they may not be. So, I mean, it can be an all-day venture. So just be aware that you've got expenses for your car, and you've got to have a certain type of insurance that you got to provide to your office to make sure that if you're taking somebody in your car and you get into an accident.
Which shouldn't cost any more than you're already paying on your insurance, just so you know that. So if you're interviewing and they say, yes, this is going to cost a little bit more,
Yeah.
it's
or if
just a
you-
rider on your insurance.
Or if
so
you don't have insurance,
that's a problem.
it is a problem. Right. Okay, so, and then real quick, our association fees, as far as an industry fee, our associations, we have them at the local level, like at our city or our county, and then we have one for the state level and one for the national level. And every year you pay into that trio of, I guess we can kind of explain them as like if they're our union, right?
Okay.
Or they're our association, and they fight battles for us that we can't do individually, but they can do collectively. So,
in the government arena.
right, in the political arena. So our local people, they will fight, they'll do support people for school board measures or for real estate excise tax or that kind of stuff. If the cities are looking to do something that could cause harm to the real estate industry, our local association will get together and they'll fight for that.
And so just to be clear, not every office is a member of the National Association of Realtors. And in order to use that Realtor R on any of our marketing, that's a requirement for us to be NAR members, and then in our state, Washington Realtors, and in our local space, Lower Columbia Association of Realtors. So, yeah.
There's a difference between being a real estate agent, which is everybody, and a realtor,
Yes.
right? Because only realtors who belong to these state and national associations can use that Realtor R. And the fees to join those can be substantial. I mean, we're talking somewhere between $700 and $800 a year. And you got to pay that right up front when you join. So, I mean, to get into real estate, but by the time you take all of the tests and the fingerprints and the licensing fees and the MLS fees, you're probably $3,000, $3,500 maybe.
I dropped that down a little bit.
South of 3,000.
Yeah, south of 3,000.
Okay.
It depends on if you need a new laptop. So there are some other things in
Okay.
there.
So let's talk about that real quick, gang. If you're bringing a Chromebook to work, don't bother, because that's not a real computer. That's a toy from your kid's elementary school. And
Not to be too blunt or anything.
yeah,
But
because I mean, this is probably the biggest headache for our new agents is they bring technology that has been working fine for their life to that point, but then they get into a real business and all of a sudden they're trying to run it with a Chromebook.
you need to kind of beef it up.
Yeah.
This is your business. And so you want the best equipment that you can possibly afford at the time. And we understand that when you're first coming into a profession, you may not have the money in the bank to invest in new tech. As soon as you can, if you have older laptop or basically an older laptop, you're going to want to invest in something that has a lot of memory and functions well and interacts with new applications and new software programs well. So just something to consider. If at all possible, don't limp in to this profession, because it will take you a long time to get up and going well.
Yeah. So the other thing that we tell everybody is when you're brand new, you should have 6 months of your bills in savings.
If at all possible.
Okay. Because it could take you, depending on how well you listen and learn and how well the market is doing.
How well you hustle.
Yeah, and your hustle, and what kind of fears you're willing to overcome. It could take months to close your first transaction, and because this is not a salaried position or an hourly position, if you're not closing, you're not taking any money home to the family.
Not
So
getting paid.
definitely make sure that you got your bills covered for several months. I mean, we like to see 6 months, and we've let some people in because they said, we're going to make it and it's going to be fine, and we've got this coming and we got a tax return coming, and then something doesn't materialize, and all of a sudden they've got commission breath in the worst way, meaning that they've got to sell something because they got to pay rent. And that really destroys your confidence and plays with your head. So just be careful and make sure that you got money in savings before you jump into real estate, because it's no fun starving while you're learning. It's horrible. So let's talk about this. What is your commission split, and is there a cap? And if there is a cap, how does that work? So let's talk commission split. What does that even mean?
So commission split basically means how much are you splitting your commission with the office that you're working with. So like Brad mentioned earlier, if you have a commission coming in of $10,000, I like easy numbers, let's go with that, and you are on a 50-50 split, you will but your gross of that will be $5,000, and the office will keep $5,000. And then obviously fees and such will come out of the rest of that from your 50%. 30-70 split would mean that the office is keeping 30% and you're keeping 70%. And then there are some offices, especially discount brokerages, that keep just a fee base,
Flat fee.
not a percentage of your commission split. And then there are those that kind of morph the two of them together.
The hybrid.
The hybrid, I would call it a hybrid.
Yeah. Well, so these pricing models are the graduated, or what they call a tiered split. It's kind of archaic. It's been around for a long time. And a lot of brokerages stay there because they get a lot of money, right? And they don't have to push anybody to work hard, because if you're getting 50 or 40% or 30% of a $10,000 check and you've got 50 agents doing that for you, even once a month, that can get considerable as far as income.
For the office.
For the office, yeah. And so we have to be careful. You want to be careful about asking about their splits, and then whether they're a discount brokerage or one of these hybrids that we're talking about. A hybrid will basically do a flat fee based on a transaction price. So if the house is $400,000 or somewhere between 200 and 400, your flat fee price is X. And then if it's 400 to 600, it's X plus $250. So it just goes up in increments so that you can always plan and know exactly how much is coming out of your check every time. But the thing that you want to watch out for is you want to work for offices that are going to understand that you as the agent are their future. You as the agent are really the thing that generates revenue for them. And make sure that they're treating you like you are those things, because often more brokerages will treat new agents or even seasoned agents like a piñata, and they just keep hitting them with a stick until the coins stop falling out, right? When the candy starts and the coins stop, you're in trouble, right? So you have to be careful, because you may spend, $20,000 in split money, and then they'll take you from 50-50 to 60-40, and then you'll pay the office another $20,000 over the year, and then they'll move you up to 70-30, and then you'll pay another $20,000. So there are some offices that it's $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year just to work there, right? Those are fees that you're paying and money you're not taking home to your family. So you have to be aware of how these splits impact you. What we're seeing right now is there's a lot of people moving because they're realizing, as the market has slowed down, I can't afford to work where I work anymore, because they're taking the majority of the money. And if I'm only going to sell 5 or 6 homes this year, I can't afford to not elevate to that next tier. So, it just becomes where people eventually have to vote with their pocketbook. Loyalties aside.
I was going to say, I think loyalty is important to all of us. And the question that I often ask people who are considering making a move but not really sure if that's something that they want to do, because they really like their broker, their managing broker, or the owner, or whatever, has been really good to them. My question is, how many pictures do you have of your family in your phone versus your managing broker? Where does your loyalty really lie? And at the end of the day, who is the priority in your life? Is it your family, or is it your boss? So the other thing that I would suggest is that when you've had conversations with a managing broker, recruiter, whoever you're talking to in the office, if they quote you a split, let's say they say to you, oh, we're going to, you'll get 80-20 split here when you start. Please read your policies and procedures and your independent contractor agreement, and make sure that what is said to you verbally matches what you're signing in writing. So we have heard of experiences of folks who were promised one thing but signed off on another. And so you just want to do your due diligence as you are signing paperwork, read it. My dad always said, never sign anything you haven't read, especially contract-wise. So that would be a piece of advice that I would give to anybody signing on with a new firm.
Yeah. So that talks a little bit about commissions. So let's talk about what a cap is. Okay. So
You're going to have to do that.
okay, that's fine. So a cap is literally that. It's a cap on your commissions. So some offices offer those, some offices don't. And the offices that don't are going to extract money from you all year, every month. There's no end to what you pay. And those are the offices that can sometimes make $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 on your back, so to speak. There are other offices that have a cap, and sometimes the caps are aggressive. In other words, really, they're really profitable for you because they're low. And meaning, once you pay $5,000 or $10,000 or $15,000 in, they'll move you to a 90-10 split or 100% split. And then for the rest of the year until you hit your anniversary mark, you don't pay any fees, or you pay very few fees. So that's kind of the basic of a cap. Is there is a limit to what the office is going to take from you. So that's the first thing. So you need to ask if your office does or has a cap. And then if they say, yes, we do have a cap, you need to find out, what does it entail to hit that cap? Is it a certain number of transactions that I have to do? Is it a certain transaction volume I have to do? So, I save up, or I do, 20 homes and they're $500,000 each. And that means I've done, $10 million in volume, and now I hit my cap. And so everything after that, I'm getting more of my money every time I close a transaction. And then when you hit your 12-month anniversary mark, when you move in with the company, then it reverts back to zero and you got to start paying off your cap again. So most agents, when they're brand new, don't have enough volume to even worry about hitting a cap. But you don't want to get yourself entrenched in an office and then find that there are other offices that have a way better cap. And if you would have just started there or have a cap at all, because there are some offices that don't, right? And you don't want to be paying into that office forever and have no limit, because that's just money you're throwing away. I had a conversation with somebody recently, and after running their numbers compared to what we were doing, where they worked was another $40,000, $50,000 that they've paid to their firm when they didn't have to. And so all of a sudden that's...
If they would have been working for us, you mean?
Right. Had they been working for us. And so that is one of kind of the prime examples of, you have to do what's best for you. So to Marianne's point, whose pictures are in your phone, right? And if it's your managing broker, that's great. You've got
That's impressive.
That's impressive, right? And so if you are more loyal to your managing broker in your firm than your family, have at her, right? I mean, everybody's got friends and we're trying to build acquaintances. I don't think that's the majority of people. I don't think anybody goes to work so that they can pay their boss to work for them. But there are expenses that the firm has to pay to keep the doors open. So, most agents in general, if it's a full service brokerage, should pay somewhere between $20,000 and $25,000 in fees every year. And of course, that's going to fluctuate everywhere. There are some places, some firms that will do specials because they want to get a big recruiting push in there, or they'll go after a top producer and they'll say, hey, if you come over to us and leave your firm, we'll set your cap at $12,000 this year, when normally it's 30. And so they
won't tell you normally it's 30.
Right.
They'll just tell you, for this year, we'll just have you pay $12,000.
Yeah, well, and they won't even tell you this year often. They'll just assume you know that. And so you'll sign up with them, and they will only charge you $12,000 that year, so you'll make better money that year. But on your anniversary, they're going to come back around and they're going to renegotiate that, and they will probably push you right back down to or right up to a $30,000 cap. So they've drawn you in
or another
with
split.
Right, they've drawn you in with a lost leader, so to speak, to get your transaction volume in-house. And then once they've got you, they've got you. So because
be purposeful.
Yeah. So
Investigate.
Just, yeah, true.
Be intentional about where you go, and to kind of conclude this particular session for today, it is always a good idea to interview other agents who work in that office and get the skinny, get the down low about that office as much as you can. Managing brokers and recruiters will often tell you what they think you want to hear.
Because they're the salespeople for the
Because
firm.
they're the salespeople. Please consider talking to other agents that work for the office and ask some of these same questions. You may get different answers. So if that's the case, that's a big red flag. And you might want to think about interviewing somebody else.
Well, and on top of that, I would encourage you to interview as many firms in your community as possible. And keep an open mind, because you may have a friend who says, oh, you got to go work for these guys. They're the best. But what does the best mean to your friend, right? Best because they've got the coolest looking office. Best because he's got a good friend that works there and he's in IT and he says he loves it, but he's not even a real estate agent. So you got to be aware as to who's referring you to these places to go visit and why. But if you can visit all of them, to give yourself a good clear picture as to what you're looking at for fees and for expenses and for
Training.
Requirements, right? I mean, there's some firms require a volume amount every quarter. And if you don't hit that, you're gone. And so there are some that will require floor time and others that don't. And some that require, some that have a cap and some that don't. So there's things that you have to ask. And until you're belt buckle to belt buckle with someone at the firm asking these questions, you're never going to know. But probably the most important piece of these questions is that you take a copy of the questions on the page and a yellow legal pad so that you can write the number of the question down and that person's answer. Ask them for permission to write your answers down so they don't think you're being...
It's just best practice.
Right,
It's
best
just
practice.
Consider it.
Yeah, so there's some consideration there, but there's also etiquette in an interview process. But for the people who have said, hey, can I write down your answers? I'm like, well, that's cool. Nobody else has taken notes recently, so this is very promising, right? So you never know. You just never know. Anyways, so we are thankful that you took the time to watch this podcast. And if you have any questions, feel free to subscribe and follow, comment,
share,
splash, whatever we call that. Pound, poke. I don't know.
Have a great day, everyone.
We'll talk to y'all later.